let's get started today. Well, good morning, everybody. I want to welcome you to our conversation today. Why cyber insurance claims get denied and what smart businesses do differently. So we're going to explore some things that catches a lot of business owners off guard. You get hit with a cyber incident, you think, hey, you know what, no problem. I got this covered. I got cyber insurance. And then your claim gets denied. Happens more frequently than you realize. And so today we're going to be breaking down, why this happens, what you can be doing to avoid this, and what can do to go ahead and protect their cash flow and their data. So my name is Rob Schenk. I'm with Intelligent Technical Solutions, and here we help small and medium-sized businesses thrive by managing and securing their technology. A couple of housekeeping notes before we get started here. Conversation should run about 30 or so minutes. We'll stick around to answer some questions. Conversation will be recorded. If you'd like to review some of the information later at your own convenience and share it with colleagues, happy to take questions during the course of the webinar. Want to make this as collaborative as we can. We'll have some time for Q&A at the end. If you do have a question, please go ahead and click on that Q&A box in your Zoom toolbar there, and we'll go ahead and get those answered for you today. You'll notice in the top right corner a QR code. That's going to lead to an offer for attendees of the webinar. In case you need to leave early, might want to take a photo of that so you can connect with us. And for today's discussion, I'd like to welcome our very special guests. Dan Candee, CEO of Cork, and brings a lot of experience from Dell, Amazon Web Services, and he's built and launched 4 businesses. Dan holds an MBA in International Business from the Middlebury Institute of International Studies. And Cork is rewriting what cyber protection really looks like by connecting verified security controls directly to financial coverage. And I'd like to also welcome Sean Harris. He's our Chief Security Risk Officer here at ITS. He lives in this world every day, helping businesses harden their defenses, document compliance, and survive all the ugly stuff that we'll be kind of reviewing a bit today. Plays a critical role in ITS's cybersecurity strategy, incident response, and manages our security operations center here at ITS. So with that, I'd like to welcome you both and look forward to the conversation.
Thanks for having me, Rob.
All righty, so let's get started here. The session is going to be very practical. We want to, we built this specifically for the realities that SMBs are facing right now. So quick overview of today's topics. We'll be talking about just understanding the risk. Why do most cyber insurance claims, why do they get denied? We'll talk through the cash flow gap and basically how the payouts can delay and how this is impacting businesses. We'll talk about the proof that pays. So what exactly do you need to be doing in order for insurers to actually approve your claim? We'll talk through smarter protections, some of the coverage and controls and how warranties kind of work together. And we'll talk through next steps where you can go ahead and talk through the steps to get an assessment done, and we'll answer any questions that you have at the end, as we mentioned. All right, so Dan, let's get started with the big picture. Can you talk through, current cyber insurance landscape? What are the challenges that SMBs are facing? And maybe we can kind of start with that.
Yeah, you bet. And thanks for the kind words. I'm actually going to start on the opposite side of that, which is far away from the accolades that you mentioned, because I was actually a college dropout, and the first business I started was that of a house painting company, simply because I wanted to get a couple nickels together to be able to travel the world. And I mention that because to me, starting businesses, building businesses, this is what this country is all about, right? Like, and this is why I'm sitting in this seat today. And after a career at AWS and Dell and some of, 22 years in technology, it's a long winding road to be here and thinking about cybersecurity in this lens because the last 5, 10 years has just been so crazy when it comes to what's happening with international threat actors and then what's happening to us as consumers, what's happening to us as business owners and managers, and how we're interacting with our employees and our families and everything else. So I start there because I just think it's so important for all of us to remember and understand that we cannot hide any longer from these bad guys and bad girls. And when I was at AWS, I got to work with these large banks and MGM, right? Everybody heard about some of those big breaches. And I was doing deals with banks that were hundreds of millions of dollars, where they have over 100 people on their cybersecurity teams. And it's like, man, the threat actors really have got to want something badly from the enterprise. Well, that's also a really hard target, right? And what's happened in the last 3 years, especially, is they're all coming in to our small and medium-sized business world. And now what we're seeing here at Cork with real numbers, and then in my conversations with Gartner analysts and others, is that in 2025 alone, we saw a 47% increase spike for small and mid-sized business attacks. And really, the dollar amount that they're coming after is that 25,000 to $100,000 range, right? They're trying to take that 25, $50,000, out of our bank accounts, but do it 10 times or do it 100 times versus taking $1 million or $20 million from somebody else. And so this is now the world that we're living in. Everybody gets the text messages and the spam calls and the insane emails and the rest of it. So we all know that pain. And so, it's like now we're living in a world where we're more likely to get digitally hacked than physically attacked. And so we just have to prepare for that.
Yep. So let's talk through most small and medium-sized businesses, that kind of fit the category that we're talking to.
Yeah.
Typically speaking, they have around 18 days of cash on hand. So it's basically, one pay cycle, give or take. Now, when most people don't realize it, then insurance claims can take, 4 to 6 months to pay out. That's a long time to cover payroll, vendors, recovery costs, when your systems are down and data's locked up. And I think that's where this new concept of a cyber warranty comes in. So maybe Dan, you can kind of talk through that, and what does a cyber warranty look like? How does that help companies kind of close that cash flow gap?
Yeah, you bet. So, my parents own a restaurant in Wisconsin. My brother's a sheriff. My sister runs nursing facilities. And when I think about cash flow for each of these different types of businesses, I'm always kind of asking the question, how much money do you have on hand, or what is your financial position when it comes to some type of cyber event, right? ACH wire transfer fraud, ransomware, just these types of attacks that we're facing these days. And how much financial resilience do you have? And each business is different. And the world that we're living in now, there's more and more opportunities for better coverage at a better price. And that's really where the genesis of Cork came from, is that cyber insurance is originally was built for the enterprise, and now it's moving into SMB. It's not moving fast enough, which is kind of where we saw an opportunity to be of service. And it's specifically because a lot of businesses have that less than a month, around a month type of cash flow on hand, and that's tough. So yeah, that's one of those pieces where, if you think of what Cork is doing, essentially our job is to start with technology first and to make sure that we're helping our partners, such as Mr. Sean here, right? Make sure that we can see and stop, bad guys and bad girls way before they ever, get to anybody's front door. And that's really job one. Job two is tying that to money, so that if and when these events happen, within an hour, we're handing over a $10,000 virtual credit card, so that our partner can just instantly move. And then our goal is to reimburse our clients, as small business owners, medium-sized business owners, within 2 weeks, and our partners within 2 weeks. Because again, it's got to be less than that 18-day number. And so that's how I built the metrics there. Yeah, that's kind of, and as you said, cyber insurance typically takes 4 to 6 months. We work very closely with cyber insurance. It's a better together story for
Mhm.
for a lot of people, and we're seeing better cyber insurance products come into the market. And so, it's about that journey that we're on to help all of our clients just find the right thing for the right price.
So as maybe like a way to think about this is that insurance is kind of like maybe like a reimbursement strategy where a warranty on the other side is almost like financial protection kind of as a service kind of does that make
Yeah, if you go buy a new Cadillac, right, it comes, backed saying Cadillac is saying, "Hey, we built you one heck of a car and we're going to get you down the road for years and years. We stand by that car." And that's very much how Cork operates. We stand by our technology, we stand by our partners such as ITS, right? And together we have, a pretty robust way of operating, arms linked ITS and Cork together. And so that's all backed by Lloyd's of London, right? That allows ITS and Cork to operate as one and to offer these types of financial programs for our clients together.
so when we sit
Versus
down with yeah go ahead.
versus an insurance, right? When you drive that Cadillac down the road, somebody pops you at a stoplight, right? You got to, somebody else is going to pay for that accident.
So when we sit down with business leaders we're typically asking a couple of questions, how many weeks of cash could your company survive with if you operations just stopped overnight. What happens to your data and your customers if it's stolen tomorrow? So it's more of a, cash flow and kind of continuity, business continuity type questions. Because if you can't access your systems, you can't bill. If you can't pay and you can't recover, then that's not an IT problem. It's more of a business problem, right? So Sean, make transitioning over to you. You've been in the trenches after, many a cyber incident. When companies call after a breach, what are you seeing what are the biggest surprises that you see that most companies kind of are facing about the financial side of a recovery process?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, what many organizations, so we have plenty of organizations that we work with that have really gone through their incident response plan. They understand the disaster recovery. They maybe even have done a tabletop or a simulation of it. So they have a pretty good feel for it. But for every one of those, there's 10 out there that probably haven't done any of that, and probably some people on this call here. And so they may think, I have insurance, it's covered. Everything's fine. They don't really know the fine print of that insurance. So that's part of the surprises that come up during this time, right? Is will they have enough money to operate? That's the one, the question you had, how many weeks of cash? They're going to have to make some decisions right out of the gate that are hard to make if you haven't thought about it ahead of time. And those decisions are, is it an incident? Is it to the level of an incident yet in which we immediately go to insurance? Is it covered by insurance? Do we want to do some level of forensics first? There's a whole bunch of decision points that have to be made. And even worse is if there's, we've had internal IT companies come to us and they're at the decision point of paying ransom. uh, even bigger things, right? And those are hard decisions to make. And if you haven't thought of it ahead of time, what is our plan? While you're making that decision, nothing is operating, no money is coming in, nobody can work, and you've got leadership in your organization tapping on your shoulder, saying, your partners and your associates saying, "What's happening? When is this going to be back? But how do we get out of this?" So that's probably the biggest thing is that people don't realize that there's a technical aspect to it of recovery that takes time. That's really a marathon. And then there's a sprint that happens right out of the gate that you have to be ready for.
Yep. Dan, any thoughts on that?
It's spot on. I have, as of yesterday, 1,737 customers. And I happen to know that because we were in a planning session thinking about through some new processes for 2026. And part of it because it's daunting to think about the different ways that these situations play out. And in our business, how do we anticipate all of the needs of our customers? Because as Sean just described, a ransomware incident is very different than an internal wire transfer fraud when somebody got tricked into sending money to an account that they shouldn't have versus a gift card scam versus what looks like something suspicious, but you don't know. And so you need your partner to do some incident response and ask some questions and leverage technology. Like there's just so many different ways that threat actors are pushing, poking, finding gaps. And Sean, you and I have talked about this before in some of our private planning sessions where it's like, we know we can keep our herd running across the Serengeti, our herd at the front of the pack. And it really is the threat actors are picking off the slower moving animals at the back of it. You've used that analogy with me before, and I'm like, gosh, that is exactly it. There's so many vulnerable businesses out there, and the way I don't know, maybe you've said it better that in the past. Maybe you want to pick that one up from me.
Yeah, it's interesting. Actually, we got a call, or actually a comment from Paul, and he mentions don't forget about exfiltration, where people are, once a hacker is in, they're sucking the data out of the network and then using that as leverage to go ahead and force you to, pay the extortion fee, right?
Yeah, yeah. So the threat actors didn't, if they didn't already have enough pressure to try to get you to make bad decisions in the heat of the moment, are now getting even more creative, and they have for a while now. So they're doing things like you just said, exfiltrating your data and threatening to leak it. And so now it's not as much we're going to lock it up and you don't get access to it again. It's we're also going to go ahead and send this to everybody out in the world, and
Yeah.
you're going to lose your competitive advantage. You're going to violate your non-disclosure agreements, your partner agreements. All these things are going to be a real problem. But I
So,
love Dan that you brought up the Serengeti. Yeah, it is they say you don't have to be faster than the bear. You just got to be faster than the one next to you running from the bear also. Yeah.
yeah. So Dan, let's bring this to life a little bit. You've worked with, lots and lots of small and mid-sized businesses, healthcare to construction firms, and all sorts in between. Let's maybe talk through some real life examples of ways that we've kind of helped some folks out.
Yeah, you bet. One that I was thinking about in anticipation of this call is a construction client of ours, a partner that construction industry is one that is just getting pinged on a regular basis. And one of the reasons is because threat actors know there's a lot of invoices moving around, there's a lot of money, there's a lot of characters in the business, right? You've got everybody from architecture to concrete to all of the employees. You got just a lot of information, right? And so we recently had one where the threat actors infiltrated the architecture firm, and our client is the construction company, our partner, and is managing the construction company, who's was luckily covered by Cork. In this case, with $100,000 worth of coverage. Well, what happened was 90 days prior, about 80 some days prior, the threat actors had infiltrated the business email compromise, got into the architecture firm, and they just sat and watched and witnessed how invoices were going in and out, what they looked like. And it was kind of a scene from uh, Catch Me If You Can. What's that actor's name?
Tom Hanks?
Leonardo
Oh,
DiCaprio.
yeah.
Caprio,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's in the bathtub with the airplanes peeling off the TWA stickers, right, from the airplanes to make fake checks. They were literally copy pasting beautiful AI type of stuff in order to create these invoices. And sure enough, they tricked the construction company and the three people that were required to change the ACH. It was beautifully done. The construction company really didn't know. They didn't pick up the phone to verify the change. That would have been helpful. But you know, the partner and the construction company were doing everything right. Incredible technology, great stack, great things, at great endpoint protection, MFA being on, security awareness training being done, like everybody really working together to do their best. But these threat actors leveraging, modern tech and patience and a little bit of human emotion ultimately said, hey, you guys are normally pretty good about paying your invoices. You're behind a week, and here's the new account for all the new projects. Would you mind helping us out? We could use a little bit of help over here. We're behind on payroll. Could you just do this thing over here? And before you know it, right, this construction company had sent too much money to people that they weren't doing. And they had done it to 13 other construction companies and companies all the same week, right? So they hit everybody at one time. And, just playing off of human emotion, a little bit of trickery, well planned out. So again, rather than going one time for $1 million, you're going 10 times, right? For, get your $1 million that way.
Yeah.
And it yeah.
Sean, how about any examples that you can share?
What Dan just mentioned is one that we just saw recently also. And it's a shame you can have everything going great and then a partner can be compromised that you deal with. And so then it comes back to the human factor. Are they able to utilize that partner's trust with your organization to then compromise you? And we had something recently where an organization it just looked real. It was a really great email sent and it fished right into the director of finance and then sent from that individual to dozens of other employees that all within minutes were clicking on it. And there is software that stopped and restricted all this, but still damage was done, right? Still someone got in and got access to things that needed to be looked at. And there were forensics and things that needed to happen there. And if it's a bigger issue, right, insurance might have to be brought in. And depending upon showing evidence and different things we're going to talk about next, right? We don't know exactly how this will all out, what the outcome will be.
Yeah, so Sean, maybe you can kind of walk us through like, on the one side, hey, I think I'm good. I passed my audit, I'm compliant, right? But then when the actual situation occurs, it doesn't get approved or it gets denied. Can you walk us through, like from your side, what's the difference between kind of like being compliant on one side, readiness on the other, and then getting your claim?
Yeah, so we do compliance for clients that need SOC 2 or high compliance requirements. These have assessors or auditors that come in, and we have people in there too that say, we're good, we passed this. We also have just kind of the standard client that has cyber insurance. They fill out an attestation once a year. They have to say that they're doing certain things. Hopefully, they're asking their IT department, people with the knowledge of exactly what those things mean, right, to fill them out and be honest and open about what's actually happening. And and then they believe that okay, you know, everything's good. The difference really is those are oftentimes if you filled that out and you knew exactly what you were doing and you were completely honest and everything was happy, that's still a point in time snapshot. That's not overtime. And things over time happen. If they didn't happen, we're all humans, right? Things happen over time. People come and go from the organization. Computers are left in places. There's all types of things that we have to just continually check. The good news is nobody expects anybody to be perfect, but you do have to show the evidence that you were doing best effort at every given moment. So that's where different tools, like actually Cork has a tool that's checking all these devices and things and making sure that those are checking in. But that would be uh, ongoing versus a one-time snapshot.
Yeah. So Dan, you've described this in a way as kind of like a contrast die analogy. Maybe you can touch base on that briefly.
Yeah, the way Sean is talking about insights, audits, not as one time, but as business in a business continuity mindset, that's real life to me. We all live in a dynamic world, right? Especially as business operators. And that's very much how we think of it at Cork Cyber. A couple of years ago, my dad was having a heart issue. Uh, he went in like, all right, well, we're probably going to end up doing some stents. They start looking at stuff. They use the dye. They inject that dye to go, look at him at the cellular level, and they go, holy crap, stents aren't going to solve this, buddy. We got to do a bit more, and we got to get you a quadruple bypass. My dad's doing wonderful, by the way. But the point is, you got to be able to see from the inside out to that level. And that's exactly how Cork is. We work with incredible partner like ITS, which has beautiful, incredible cybersecurity tools that operate right at different levels on different devices, making people better, smarter, and closing those gaps. And when working in conjunction with a company like Torque where or Cork, where we're able to kind of aggregate some of those signals and then create the credibility, the audibility around that whole system. Well, the question is why? Why does any of that matter? And the reality is that if something happens, what matters is the money, right? Because sometimes, like kind of the examples that I just used of the threat actors getting through to the construction company, you just need the money to hit the bank account to make sure that payroll is made and that things are surviving. And that's kind of the point of insurance or a Cork warranty type of product, right? Like it just there has to be proof to the system. It starts with the data, starts with the visibility, and then it's really got to be a payout there. And being able to sleep at night knowing that you're going to survive these things is what it's all about.
Yeah. So let's like zoom out for a second here, and we talked about how the threat landscape has today looks very different than how it was, even 12 months ago. So I guess Sean, like, what are some of the kind of foundational pieces that a company, regardless of size, really needs to be having in place in 2026 just to kind of stay in the game?
It's interesting because every year, right? This is something that should be reevaluated more often than annually, but ideally, if your organization has a risk register, there's different things that you're doing with likelihood and impact. But ultimately, insurance will also push these things where they'll come in and one year maybe not having MFA was okay, and the next year it's not okay. You have to have MFA across your whole stack. We're seeing new things now where AI has really become a huge uh, adversarial tool that's out there now. I mean, we're catching up on the blue team on the good side, right? To be able to utilize it better too. But what it's done for the threat actors is it's given them almost perfect targeting of phishing emails, beautifully drafted things that you can't find the things you used to be able to find, right? Where the spelling's wrong and the grammar's wrong. It's pretty much perfect now. So we're seeing like really good targeted phishing that's happening. And so some of the tools that are new that are out there, right, that have always been out there but are now coming down to SMB level, mid-market level where you really need to have them. That would be advanced AI email filtering. You need to have kind of more robust tools there. You really should have something that's making sure that everything is actively working. That's the other piece that we kind of keep hitting on is it's not just about the tools and putting them in place, but it's about how are you making sure on an ongoing basis that those tools are working. I know a lot of places that they feel like they've fixed a problem by purchasing a tool, but they actually maybe made the problem worse because now they're no longer talking about the problem. They think it's done. Um, the big thing is, regardless of all of it, things are going to happen. We know that the likelihood of some event happening in which you need to do a recovery is fairly high at this point. Looking at annually for most organizations, the impact of that will be limited by the types of tools you have and the way that they're working and the process in which you've developed. So having a business continuity plan, disaster recovery plan, keeping constant asset inventory, really going through what would happen if we had a breach, if we had ransomware, what would we do? And that's really should be outlined in your incident response plan and some playbooks, but also you should have a tabletop. And that's where you all sit around at a tabletop. A lot of times it's done virtually now, right? And you simulate a crisis. I like to say it's kind of like Dungeons and Dragons, right? Where you have the game master and they come in and they give you a scenario and say, what are you going to do now? And so, and it's never perfect. I've yet to come out of one of those where everything they planned worked perfectly. And that's why you have to do them because you learn so much from that simulation that you put back in. And you have the average everyday person that's in there, right? Also, you should have different representation in your organization, depending upon your size, you might have everyone. And they're going to come back and go, I don't know what this means in the IR plan, right? This doesn't mean anything to me. And you go, you know what? You're right. That doesn't mean in the heat of battle, we're not going to know what to do there. So those are the types of tips and things that you come out of it with.
Yeah. So really the kind of take home message is that for you to be cyber resilient, you really need to have, people and process and technology all kind of lining up.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let's make this tangible. Let's prepare for the future here and let's go ahead and help folks out. So Dan, maybe you can talk about what kind of measurable difference do you see when companies are adopting this kind of a security model that we've been talking through?
I'm going to drive home one point from what Sean just said. And just because we're looking at 2026, square in the face, right? And Sean, you said business continuity. And if I would recommend one thing for every business owner, business manager thinking about next year, is just put business continuity as one of the pillars in next year's strategic plan. Whatever, however you're operating, make room for business continuity and then allow that to become a thing. And we can start talking about what that is right now. Uh, because if leadership doesn't prioritize this, it just won't get done.
Mhm.
And I'll share a funny story. I run a cybersecurity company, right? So over Thanksgiving break, we happened to run one of our email phishing tests with our own employees. It happened to be around a gift card thing for Starbucks, and it was pumpkin lattes or something. I don't know. And two of our own employees clicked on the link when they shouldn't have clicked on the link, right? I share that humbly just to drive home that point that Sean's talking about, that things are getting sophisticated, things are moving fast, and we as humans are vulnerable, right? So make it a priority so that every month we as business people are doing something to keep this top of mind. Run the tabletops, right? Run the email tests, work with ITS so that you're actually leveraging the right tools, right? And staying up to date on the right tools, and making sure that the things that your cyber insurance uh, policies require that you're doing those types of things. If you're not sure, talk to Sean and the team, and we can help with those types of things. It's just those fundamental four or five things. Uh,
Yeah.
and again,
Yeah.
these, bullet one, security investments don't need to be cost centers, right? These are investments in the future, right? This is not just the cost of doing business, but you're making sure that you've got the right setup for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. Maybe we can talk through a little around just common myths or top objections that we often hear. First one, hey, we're too small. Maybe Danny can talk through that one a little bit.
Yeah. I mentioned a bit of that at the top of the call. When I look at Cork data this year, we're somewhere around 4.4 million compliance events year to date. And of those 4+ million compliance events, we've had about 15 payouts, 15 claims come through Cork. I'm really proud of that particular statistic. What's interesting is that only two of them have been over $100,000. The rest are all in that 20 to $50,000 range. And a lot of the attempts that we have seen are in that 20, 10 to $20,000 range. And that's like at volume, folks. That is at millions of compliance events that we're seeing. Just think of the analogy of people, bored kids or, some inexperienced bad guys walking around in a parking lot at Walmart or something, just checking doors, right? Like what doors are open? What can I go steal from an open car or something like that? We're seeing just that volume of activity. And so there's just nobody that can escape sort of those door knocks these days.
Sean, what about we're compliant?
We kind of touched on that before. You'd be surprised how many times we've come in to assist a client who's compliant, who maybe was compliant 6 months ago or 8 months ago, but it doesn't mean the same thing as continuously monitoring and making sure things are correct. And so, also depending upon your compliance, there's a lot of ambiguity and nuances there, right? Depending upon the compliance that you're doing, I've heard people go, "We're ISO compliant over here," and I go, "Well, that doesn't really help over here, right?" Or the specific type of compliance they had was just a snapshot, and so well, when was the last time you did it? 3 years ago. Okay, well, a lot changes even in a few months, so
Yeah.
that's one we hear a lot.
And then Dan, what do you want to cover? Like insurance is just going to cover it?
Yeah. Look, I think when insurance is in place, they certainly try to do a really good job, and I've seen some great examples of that. Reality is 18% of SMB has cyber insurance, and when they
Really?
do,
18%?
18. And when they do, it's typically 4 to 6 months when there's a full payout. And so it's a lot of time. And so if you're self-funding your own remediation program or you're ready to, cover that gap, that's great. And I think that's a really smart way to do it. But then again, you might be wanting to use that capital to grow your business or do something else, right? And
Sure.
that's where financial things like, there's other programs, and obviously, I happen to be in the business of providing one of those. But we do it for, like really inexpensive, right? Like a couple bucks. Like it's designed to be really inexpensive because you don't want to use it a whole lot. And then a lot of these payouts that we're seeing, I already described, these are less than $100,000. So that doesn't have to cost the moon. We're not planning for, $5 million payouts here like a lot of the cyber insurance does. We're trying to help quick, fast, for some of these smaller things that are more valuable. So look,
Yeah.
we're all on a journey together.
Yeah. No, thanks for that. So I guess maybe for folks attending today, Sean, maybe you can talk through just what's the next step? What can folks do if they're interested in exploring this a bit?
Well, we have the Executive Guide to Cyber Resilience that we can send over. So it's a one pager.
Yeah.
It's a great place to start. Summarizes everything we talked about today and gives you a quick checklist to self-assess. You can schedule your cyber warranty readiness assessment. You can do that by what is that, email here, or you can
Yeah, it
scan this
can,
QR
yeah.
code.
Yeah, scan the QR code or just send an email to secure at ITS ASAP. We'll be able to schedule a meeting with Sean and his team, and have an understanding of just where you guys are in the landscape right now, and what are some ways that we can kind of help you through a discovery process. If you happen to even have insurance and you want to get a second set of eyes on that, if you're coming up for renewal on something, we can also kind of help out with that. We often see, three kind of different ways that ends up happening. One is your insurance is good. You're paying a fair price for the value that you're getting. It could be that, hey, you have a good insurance, but you know what? You may want to think about adding this particular type of service to that because you have a gap over here. Or, hey, you're not really getting the value of that, and you might want to think about looking at some alternatives so you can make sure that you're much better covered. But happy to have that conversation. All right, so maybe with that, we can kind of get to some questions because we got some questions that have come in. Um, First one that has come in, what is the smallest size company that can realistically take advantage of this type of model? What do you guys want to take that?
I can speak to that. I'm working with a lot of small companies right now that have to meet CMMC compliance, which is a government requirement for Department of Defense contractors. Uh, really, I would say that any organization that has employees, that has partners, have things that they're trying to meet, really, if it's important enough that you're a business running, it's important enough to have a plan. I think with our families, for example, we have hopefully you have a bag with emergency items in there if you have children, and you have talked about a route out if there's a fire. Same with at the schools, they run these fire drills, different things. Really, with your business, you need to do that too. So you need to come through and see exactly what is the insurance. You probably bought insurance because you thought it was important, the cyber insurance, but understanding how it works, what's going to happen when we need to use it. Those are all, doesn't matter what size you are.
Uh, Next question. Does AI change how insurers evaluate cyber risk or process claims?
Mm, sure, I'll jump in. It's hard to imagine too many aspects of our professional life where AI isn't touching something, right?
Yeah,
And
for sure.
insurance is no different. Uh, we use AI to analyze millions of insurance policies and insurance trends. And that's built into some of our models. Insurance companies are doing the same thing, trying to create the right type of policies. But I guess, you know, evaluating cyber risk and then processing claims, that's it's kind of far away from the user experience and kind of what we've been talking about. So I would actually flip that question around and say, yes, AI is over there doing things, but what matters most is working with a partner like Sean and team and making sure that you've got the right processes, frameworks, tools, and approach to running your business and then thinking about your financial resilience plan in conjunction with that. Those two things will deal with any of the AI type of things that cyber insurance, might be doing on the other end.
Sounds good. Next question. I am a CEO and I don't want to micromanage my team, nor can I necessarily control the devices that they use per se. How do I manage this risk most effectively?
Um, Sorry, go ahead, Dan.
Oh, do you want to start first? I'll jump in after.
I was just going to make a statement that that that's a great question, but it's probably pretty far ahead of identifying all the risk at your organization and kind of the impact and the likelihood, and then determining what are the most critical things to address. Managing devices that people are working on is important, but when empowered correctly with a good team that you're working with, you'll be able to see the risk and benefit of it and why you need to do it or not do it, and then you'll have multiple options on how to do it. And so there are definitely ways to do it, even with BYOD, bring your own device, where it's not even your device. That's where we hear that question more often. Hey, how do I manage a device that I don't own?
Yeah.
There's ways to do that that are less intrusive. And then there might be reasons, if it's aligned properly with the true cost to your organization, so that you can kind of quantify it, where you go, well, actually, we do need to manage it at a greater level. But that's the decision that the business owner should make after, the business leader should make after lining up exactly what is the impact and likelihood of something happening if we don't manage them.
Great question. Always a fine line too. As somebody who has done this at enterprise and at startup level, you got to have some management on it. And I would argue, just knowing when flags pop or, red lights flash that you need to address it and having that sort of visibility is sometimes good enough. Our technology is one of those that has built that in global vulnerabilities scanning type of thing that you can just see, hey, everything from a Chrome browser needs to be updated, or somebody is gaming on a company computer where it shouldn't be gaming, and you could be allowing a threat actor in that way, right? Like
Mhm.
there's, we work together on some of those technologies to make sure that if the framework by the business owner says don't allow, the policy says don't allow these types of things, then we can help all business owners make sure those doors are locked. So it's really up to the business owner, as you said, Sean.
Cool. All right, this is a good one. Can this warranty approach reduce premiums or just reduces denial risk?
100%. I love this question. It's about reducing premiums and it's about reducing risk. By one of the things that the Cork warranty pays is the cyber insurance deductible. For instance, in one of our policies, we pay up to $200,000 of a cyber insurance deductible. So if your deductible is that high, your annual cost of your insurance policy is as low as it can possibly get. So it is a financial tool that you can use because our product is relatively inexpensive when compared to a cyber insurance type of product. So just becomes a math equation. But again, there's the financial piece and there's the technology and the process piece. And I would always start with what ITS does and in what we as humans do to leverage technology, process people first.
Cool. So let's see if there's any other questions that are coming in here. I'll go ahead and put back the email address and the QR code if you want to reach out to schedule some time with us. Happy to help out. I'll give it another 10 seconds, 15 seconds here if any other last minute questions come in. Um, Just while that's happening, I'm just going to thank you both, Sean and Dan, for sharing your expertise today. It's been a great conversation, and hopefully this has been helpful for everybody. Wish everybody great, wonderful holidays. Upcoming webinar we're going to be coming up is January 8th. Invites will be going out for that. What should folks be doing for 2026 cybersecurity planning? Important conversation. It's happening on January 8th. Invites going out shortly. And everybody have a great and peaceful, restful holiday, and we'll catch up again very soon. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Rob. It was fun.
Yep. Much love.
Okay, bye.